Hey everybody, this is Petey from the Spinner Rack, and we also have
Calvin Ellis, ready to rock.
now we're on to Loki episode 3. We have both, or you can say they're both variants because they both consider themselves to be the real Loki, and they're on this chase. So basically, we had these two Lokis together. Loki's on the run. He's just escaped from the TVA, right? And we just saw him when we saw him before. We saw the female Loki set up all those time things and dropping them to try to catch those timekeepers. We see her escape, but she leaves the door open for Loki to follow. And of course, Loki does something that drops them off in the place where they don't want to be. And of course, there's a little bit of fight and that sort of thing. They're fighting. There's a couple of things of fun of them going back and forth and getting these things of how to get off this planet before it, because it's still dealing with these apocalyptic areas. And they're arguing and fighting, and then of course they get on this train to get away. But then of course that leads to another fight, and it's just like, what is going on here? And it's like, and I'm gonna say I'm a little more biased on this one because I've been reading I've been reading this new comic from Dark Horse called the Norse Mythology, which has the semi-real history of these characters, so of at least of the real Loki, and it's and we haven't really gotten something that's a real Loki moment, and like reading the sort of the myths of the some of the stuff that Loki did to Sif, and what he did when they're trying to build a wall in Asgard, and his children. Like those really, like those feel like the Loki moments where Loki is someone that they kind of hate in Asgard, but he kind of enjoys being hated. He enjoys putting them through that. At some point, they turn to Loki and they want to kill him, and then of course Loki has to fix it, and that leads to adventures of Thor and Loki together, and that sort of thing. And this is kind of a Loki who's low on ebb, trying to make his way. And of course, in the end, he'll probably become the Loki that we love. But now we got this babe here, and I know I've been going on for a long time. But she's trying to make her bread as being the Loki, but she's not really Loki like. She's kind of like most of the Marvel sort of action heroes. It's the attack of the 5'2" females, and they come in there and they kick a lot of butt and they knock a lot of guys around. But that's not really what we look for in a Loki. We look for a Loki that could, get his head chopped off and get put back on. Transform. This one passes his, or she, sorry, not him, or she passes on her spirit into other people to control them, and sort of like the Fallen movie. So I've said a lot of stuff in a really quick overview. Anything you want to clear up or be more direct about, I'm giving you the floor. Cal, give it to us.
Didn't Loki show some sort of ability like that early on? Like either in the Thor movie or the first Avengers movie where he was able to manipulate minds?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, yeah, yes, yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
think he did show something like that, and then it was almost all but abandoned. But I mean, I understand. I don't necessarily well, for me, Loki, it's if you've read if you've read the prose or poetic Edda and you read the Norse myths and you've seen that Loki, okay, you might want to see some of that. If you read the comics, the Kirby run or the John Buscema run, or of course Walt Simonson's run, you definitely would like to see some of that. Or even what we got with Dan Jurgens, you would definitely like to see some of that. This right over here, I'm not seeing him use any magic, and I'm not really getting to see him be a trickster either.
Yes.
And then we get to see his female counterpart. I can't believe that Loki would make himself into a female that was that plain. The guy seems to have the ego the size of a planet. I would think that, okay, fine. She would be like some, hot supermodel type chick or something. And I'm like, why would you, if you want to be a female, I would probably think he looks at himself as an attractive male. I would think he would be looking for something comparable in terms of being a female. Guess not. And then she comes over, the female Loki, rather, and she does all the generic stuff when it comes to the fighting. I've seen all these moves already. Like you said, this person is like half your size and beating up everybody, flipping off walls and this, but it's generic at the end of the day. I've seen these fight moves before. I've seen the Savate kick too many times. I would want to see something different. But the worst thing about it is that you have Tom Hiddleston, who's actually great in this role, and the series is just dragging. I get that it's set up for some stuff that we're going to see later on, Thor movie, this, that, and yeah, but it's just dragging. Nothing's going on. It's not compelling. And this, for me, again, reminds me of the whole thing with WandaVision, except WandaVision got 9 episodes to drag.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got, but then we got Captain American. I keep making this mistake. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We got that, and I was like, okay, good, very good improvement within the first 15 minutes. I was in it. I wanted to see it every week. This right here, I'm like, oh man, I'm back to WandaVision again. Where
Well,
like I can just wait and just watch this stuff one after the other. It's really, really dragging at the end of the day. And some of the choices that have been made in terms of the storytelling don't add up, do not make a lot of sense. And they're leading me not to care about what's going to happen. And that's never.
yeah, it's a hard thing to sort of do because it is a character, it is a location that could be have some fun sort of thing in there. But then it's like we get these scenes like when the female Loki's with the woman and she's kind of trying to repeat this thing to get where the timekeepers are, and it's just like I think I was saying it in our last, like you have these timekeepers. Like I wouldn't necessarily know if I'm just sort of the Secret Service. I wouldn't know where they're gonna hide the president, and this sort of thing. I'm trying to get it out of one of these timekeepers, and it's just one of the things you see in the X-Men, right? Where the X-Men go into space, and Kitty Pryde knows how to use the Shire equipment more than the Shire people. Like I don't want to see that. I don't want to see you grab their stick and then be able to, you know, be able to kill everybody else with, or have some sort of wear on the person where you have like, or like there's a Star Trek episode where the there's like these primitives. It was I think it was a balanced, a little private war, and the woman has a phaser, and she's like, "This for Apollo," and she's like holding it up, and she don't know how to use it. Like that's the thing when you're using other people's technology, they are totally know they know how to charge it, all this other stuff, and it's like those are fun bits that you can get to of trying to figure out how to use this stuff. Or like I think Keith Giffen did someone taking a mega rod like from Apocalypse, and this guy being this punk rocker using it, and then you slowly see in the use of the Mega Rod, because he's like, wow, he's really knows how to use it, but the Mega Rod almost has a sentient and it's taking over, it's so powerful, it's taking over the guy, and he's like almost a half monster now. And I was just like, not since I would imagine, but it was just interesting to say there was some toll this was taking on the person. So in my mind, I don't get anything out of this female Loki, and it's a sad thing. And I'm like saying, it's I don't even use your sentiment about it, but it's like ultimately they're doing a that's the point I want to make. They turn it into a Hobbs and Shaw, where they're like, let's give equal time to these Lokis. So Loki does one thing, like Loki, the female Loki's doing all this cool stuff, and then next thing you know, we see them go to a house. We see the female Loki get shot, and then we see Loki kind of do a trick, and then he gets shot. And it's just like I don't like drawing the line right down the middle and saying, hey, here, two for you, two for you, like that sort of thing. Equal it out because it's just like nobody wants to see this. At some point, I think you got to do like what's that thing like the first and the third Bad Boy movie, where it was mostly Martin, and Martin as a character built up Will Smith, saying that Will Smith was Shaft, that Will Smith was a guy that when he walks in the room, explosions happen. And then when we see it, we're not laughing because it's Will Smith walking in the room. Martin, who's had more screen time and was the bigger success at that point, built up the character. Then we get to the other ones, it's less Martin, more Will. But then the third one, they gave Will an injury. Martin had less time, but he had more funny bits that they added in. They had him in the house, and you kind of live for those moments where Martin's doing his fun stuff. And this thing, trying to split the time, doesn't work for me because it's just like if I want to, I'm not getting anything from the female Loki, and I'm not getting a Loki variant. And this is why I usually complain about Star Trek: The Next Generation, who started having you have your variant person, and you're basically talking to yourself because they're so similar. And they would do that. Janeway had a duplicate where she meets another Janeway when Janeway outsmart the older Janeway outsmart, but their minds are very similar. Like this, looking at this picture, they're not giving us anything. We don't get. I don't. If you like this character because she has the sort of the crown, the horn crown on their head, it's not selling it for me, and it's not a variant that we can get into. That if I look at the scene, this is Loki and his girlfriend. If I strip it down and didn't have any dialogue, it was a silent movie, I wouldn't get that this is a female Loki. And that's what they're not giving us. They're not giving us. They're just giving us the standard tough. She could be Captain Marvel. She could be, she could be. Sorry to say, Natasha Roman. She could be Black Widow. She could be any of the Marvel females that walk around,
Yeah,
running around. Hmm?
she's generic, and that makes her boring.
Yes. So it's sad to say there's only three more episodes left.
Oh,
So
thank God, there's only three more. Thank goodness, we can move on to something else.
the plane
I,
is going down. They just wanted to crash and then just set up for Loki to walk out and pass the baton to the multiverse of madness or whatever is next.
I don't know. I'm not sure because I know they like working with Tom Hiddleston. They kept he was the only villain who was able to survive, where all the other ones like fell into a pit, like they died in the classic Disney way, and he was the first one to fall into the pit and actually survive. Okay, so he's got the most mileage. But if this is the swan song, the last thing he's doing, I would hate for this to be it.
Yeah,
Even though I don't see how he gets out of it at this point. But you got a guy who knows the character, and you would love to have seen some material that actually goes along with the strength of characterization, rather with the acting strength that he's applied to this character. Instead, he said he's sharing screen time with a generic, lesser version of himself.
yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, they built up the Loki where they didn't do the because in the well even in the comics, he's not really like he doesn't really struggle with Odin being, stepfather and that sort of thing, and having different lineage than Thor and the rest of the Asgardian. He's Loki. He's just there to. I mean, the guy, like what was it? They even did it in the comics with Baldur's like, I can't be, I can't be hurt. All right, let me try. I'm gonna hit an arrow of mistletoe. It's like, what a jerk. And it's like a guy who enjoys messing with people and doing stuff. And it's just like we're not getting that sort of thing. We get a guy who is like the guy you find on the street, like the three card money guy that you knock the table over and you see his whole setup or something like that. So I would think they'd like, at least try to get to the Loki stuff and get to that sort of thing. Because in the Norse thing, the idea, and I think Walter Simonson connected it to having Hela be Loki's daughter, like keeping that connection. That said that even though Loki didn't plan on it, it was just him running off and having these kids with someone else outside of his wife. This thing led to the whole. This whole thing led to the Ragnarok. Like Loki is not necessarily responsible, but like his DNA is in there, and that's one of the things where he's like, "Wow, that's a real powerful sort of story." Whereas this point it's just sort of like start of like Thor's brother. And let's get back to if you're not gonna do that, you don't have to do that far because you already done other stuff. Just have Loki be fun again, that sort of thing. I was okay in Ragnarok because he was kind of winning all the time, and like kind of getting away, and it ended on a strong point where he kind of took over Asgard. But the way they ended it, it was kind of when they ended in Ragnarok, he didn't have his power, and they took a powerful scene where in the comic books, like what was it Melody Lorelai has totally control of Thor, and like Thor comes and sees Loki and Lorelai together, and Lorelai's like, Thor can't do anything. She's under my total control, and Thor has to sit there and watch while they go to bed again. And Loki's like, I don't know about this. He's like, no, it doesn't matter. Thor, Thor is under my control. And then Thor's like, ah, I have to fight it. And they turned it into sort of a joke. Whereas when Thor is trying to break the thing, that's when he holds up, he throws his hammer and he holds up Loki, and he's just like, and he says in there at the same time, he says that Loki is handsome, and that's in stark contrast to way Kirby kind of played him. He plays him way in the North, say like Loki feels he's handsome, and people like that sort of thing. So just like I'm going to destroy your face, and it's like, oh no, you're free of it, Thor, you're free. And the next 2 seconds after that, he put Thor made he caused Thor to become a frog. So it's like that's sort of fun. Like we need that fun out of Loki again, where he's like, I get it, they want him to go through the hero's journey, but he's Loki.
Loki's not a Loki's not a hero. And like I said, if you were getting Loki from, I mean, you're talking about the Simonson stuff there, but even in the Straczynski run, even in a Straczynski run, you still have Loki doing that type of stuff where he comes back incarnated in Sif's body, but he just like he just gets a kick out of it. I'm just going to stick it to Thor all the time, all
Yes.
the time. He goes over there. What did he tell him? He throws the hammer, and the hammer's getting ready to come back to Thor's hand, and he's like, "Well, I know you've been able to head back on before, but let's see if you can do it this time." let's
Yes.
test this. Let's see if you really want to test it out at the end of the day. And he's always doing it. He would just come over here, and Thor would come over. Bring him back to Asgard. The second he gets out, he's not thinking about, well, how can I stick it to Thor this time?
But
And that's something that's, I mean, because you have these dueling themes of him being the trickster and the god of mischief, but then you have the whole, theme of, fraternity between him and Thor, that they built up this brotherhood at the end of the day. And so they don't want to sacrifice one for the other, with the exception, Thor isn't here right now. So you can just be sticking it to everybody.
yeah. And that's one of the things is interesting because obviously, and I think in the Walt Simonson run, like it starts off with Loki is kind of bored at times, and he's kind of interested to see where they're not. And he's not interested in Lorelai at that point, but at the same time, as it goes further, that's when they send who's it Boulder to see Loki, and Boulder gets him to kill like a ton of people, and he's like, I've given up fighting, I'm giving up. He's overweight, and he's like, but he's still Boulder, so he has to kill all these people, and he's like, Loki, we need you on our side against Surtur, and he's like, I've already sided with the other people. And Boulder's like, you made me go through all of this. And then he's like, you see the one shot, the sword here, and then next thing you know, it cuts off Loki's head, and
Oh
then
yeah,
in shot, he's like, he puts his head back on, smiling, like, he's like, Balder, thy name is laughter.
laughter.
It's like that was his first, the real giving us a taste of what Loki was going to be, and it's just like, oh, Loki sold this all out, and then at the end of the Surtur thing is saying he comes back in there and is like, we want the bad guy. We love when Magneto goes to the side of the good because they're just cool. It's not because we want them to be good guys. It's just cool when they fight on the side of the heroes. But we don't want them to stay there all the time. They're not asking for that. But yeah, we expected a lot out of this one. They're gonna do a season 2. I'm hoping that somehow gets better because this one I can't see how they're gonna fix it in 3 episodes.
Well, they're not, but they had no intention to. And I mean, I'm certain you and I could go back and forth trading like these great Loki moments that we've read over countless amounts of comics. And suffice to say, the series is not going to be one of them that we will discuss as a as a great Loki moment. It's oh god, it's so disappointing because I knew that I expected setup with WandaVision because I know the Wanda's going to be in a movie and so on and so forth. Okay, great. I expected setup with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, even though that was much better than I expected. And they actually made the jump from the Falcon to Captain America. I wasn't expecting them to do that. I put that off into the film, but I was happy they did. Just make that costume look a little bit better, and we're okay. But this one, I just thought, okay, great. We're just gonna have some fun now, right? Because there's no real setup here for any of the films, as far as I know, unless they're gonna make female Loki the new Loki, which I could see them doing just to cheese me off.
Stop it! Stop.
Hey, you can see him doing it
Stop.
because Tom Hiddleston is dead, but hey, why not? The future is female, right? So let's just see that.
Oh, he disappears, and then we're like, "Oh wow, we got Captain." Like, hey, Loki, you want to wear my Captain Marvel outfit? Hey, we look kind of the same. Yes. That you really that one that was a low blow. That was one of those Andrew Galata low blows. If you remember him, man, it's terrible. That was really bad. We lose the real Loki for this variant. That's no fun at all.
Well, that's where we are. That's where we are with the series right now. So, it's just it's disappointing. It's just disappointing. It's disappointing.
All right, then we did as much as we could for Loki, and it did nothing for us. Spin a rack.
Out, way out.